Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's album review. Today, we're going to be reviewing the Beatles with their album called Revolver. Now, this was Brett's pick, so I will let him go ahead and he will tell us what he thought of the album. Well, we already know what he thinks of the album. He's already told us if you watched the previous video, we made the choice. So, I don't know, he's listened to it anyway. Let's see what he thought of it.
I can't remember if I gave too much away what I actually really felt of the album. But I thought just to do a couple of little disclosures beforehand, just to cover myself here. So firstly, me and Lee have always spoken in the past about a particular kind of person or people who can be quite snobbish when it comes to music. And if you don't like particular music, or particular song, or particular band, they'll think you're crazy. Think why or how can you not do that? I do not want to become one of those people in this particular video. However, I will defend the Beatles and songs as much as I can where possible. But like I said, I don't want it to be a case of that. And I did say from when we did pick the album, if you're not familiar with the Beatles or not to a favour, then this is probably not a good album to start into. Secondly, the second point I wanted to make, just to be clear, I am not a massive fan of the Beatles. I'm definitely a fan of the Beatles. I definitely probably know more than the average person on the street. But in terms of people who are real hardcore fans, I wouldn't put myself in that same bracket. And for anyone who thinks this is going to be a really comprehensive review about the album and every song and its background, just be clear, what we do on this channel, me and Lee, it's all about actually just us listening to the album and our thoughts and opinions on the song. So if you're thinking, oh, we're going to go right in depth in all of that, that won't be the case. I might add a couple of things here and there, but this is just purely just to get our thoughts of viewing the album. So it was an album I was familiar with, I did know. I hadn't listened to it for a long time. And I still stand that this is still, for me, a good, great album. I really enjoy it. However, of course, I'm going to be slightly biased because I'm a fan of the Beatles and because I've been brought up on that sort of type of music as well from a young age. Not this particular type of Beatles music, but Beatles in general. So, yes, I do really like the album. There's still a couple of songs I probably thought I liked more than I actually did, and others that I didn't think I liked as much, which I've enjoyed more, which we'll go through particularly there. But that's all I pretty want to say to start off with. So yeah, for me, it's an album I really like, and there's definitely a few songs that I really like that we'll obviously go into more detail about.
Okay, interesting. And on to me then. So yeah, I think when I was listening to this album, I always had in my head those words that you said when we picked the album, that you just repeated there, that this wouldn't be a good album for someone to listen to who doesn't know the Beatles, because it's quite a bit more experimental, a bit more unusual style. And unfortunately, I think I've become a cropper to that. I think, yeah, I don't really know much about the Beatles in terms of their music. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy the album, truth be told. But I do think a large part of that may be down to the fact that it's not maybe their usual stuff. Would that be fair to say?
It's hard to say usual stuff. I think you've got to think at this point. So at this sort of stage in their career, they've now are going to be no longer doing live tours, not doing live performances, because apparently not girls, everyone who's there is screaming too much and they just don't enjoy it. So it became more of the class as a studio band. So they were just focused on doing studio albums, and what they were doing for these albums, these next few years in the albums were more experimental stuff, being more influenced. And already they're a massive band, so now they can feel they can do what they really want to do. And it wasn't designed to be, played at concerts, or even for this particular album, like the two songs that were released as singles was Yellow Submarine, which is, as we've talked about before, is a real sort of child's song ready for the movie later on, and then Eleanor Rigby, which isn't a classic pop chart song. It's definitely more of an artistic kind of song. So yeah, from this sort of period, the next few years, it is more experimental, more what they can do in the studio rather than for it to be out there for people to hear live and stuff. If that
Yeah.
makes kind of
So
sense.
and I think that's probably why you made the point that it wouldn't be a good album to listen to if you don't really know much about the Beatles. I think firstly I'd want to get to know them, listen to their big popular stuff, and then once if I ended up liking them, then yeah, move on to their more kind of the stuff that's not made so much to be, I don't know, sung at concerts and whatnot. But yeah, I think it wasn't a good introduction to them for me. However, I did like Yellow Submarine. When the chorus came on, I started singing it aloud. We'll talk about that though when we get to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go through the songs. And one other thing I wanted to say is, I think for me, what doesn't help is the songs are so short. I find it difficult to like a song if they're less than 3 minutes long, and all of these were. I don't know, is that what the Beatles always do, or was it even just how things were at the time? Were all songs a lot shorter?
Yeah, you've got to remember this is a long time ago as well. They did do a few sort of longer songs, but generally, I think most songs that period generally, I shouldn't say that because it probably are the songs which are longer, but generally, yeah, it's all about sort of doing a 3 minute song. The Beatles were quite clever where they would then, not on this album, but then definitely from the next album onwards, where they'll put 3 or 4 short songs together to almost make it as one long, bigger song. But generally, most of the time, yeah, it's generally a 3 minute song that they'll do.
Okay, so we'll go through the songs. The first one was Taxman. I just put rather drab. I didn't really like it. I understood the meaning of it. I read about it, that they were complaining about higher taxes and stuff. But as for the song itself, just found it a bit boring. Yeah.
Yeah. So not many people. So this is actually a George Harrison song, even though John Lennon's the main lead singer in this. And yeah, I always kind of remember I liked it. Look back, it's just a good, average, nice song, really. And that's the other thing. I think by this point, in all the albums, I can't say maybe weren't previous where now they could be a bit more, I wouldn't say political, but they could put more, reason for why they're doing certain songs. So they said about this being about with higher taxes and stuff, so they could almost make political kind of statements in their songs.
Okay. Then we had Eleanor Rigby. So it's quite an interesting one. I felt more like speaking than singing in parts of that. But again, I didn't like it. I just found it unusual.
Yeah, I think most Beatles fans would probably say this is probably it'd be up there for most people as one of their best songs of all time, really. And that's what I said before, like it was released as a single, but I said it's not really like a normal sort of pop song and stuff. It is definitely more artistic. You've got to sort of appreciate, the orchestra music sort of, and it is almost like telling it is, and in fact it is telling a story. So you kind of got to sort of enjoy and appreciate it on a different level rather than trying to listen to the album or think of it as a pop song in your eyes, I would say. But I can understand personally why you may not like it. It's definitely a lot of these songs. I think you appreciate them more over time or once you know more stuff beforehand.
Then we had I'm Only Sleeping. Just put again a bit drab. It was just a bit, I don't know, with the Beatles I was kind of expecting something to be a bit more alive, a bit more, at you. But I think as you've explained, it's not that sort of album. That's not what it's about. I think you talk about their previous stuff was more kind of the screaming girls and stuff. This was a bit, this is just more artistic, and just didn't really like the song.
Yeah. As I said before, so it's generally, your classic, Wanna Hold Your Hand, Twisted Shoulder, sort of cheesy, not cheesy, pop songs. I definitely earlier on, I said this is more experimental stuff. And especially this one, this is where they're really trying to be a little bit different. You've got to remember, at this time, there's nothing really out there like this at that time as well. They really were pushing boundaries with what they were doing here. I quite like this song. I think I always remember enjoying it more. I was a little bit younger, maybe. And nothing I've got against it now. I still like it, but probably not as much as I did back then.
Okay. Then we had Love You Too. So the first thing that got me on this song was the start, the instrumentals. It was very Indian sounding.
Yeah.
And but the problem for me, I put down the song sounds all over the place, really poor. What I meant by that was the singing didn't match the music for me. It was just a bit random. I didn't really, I don't know, I didn't like it in terms of the overall song.
Yeah, and again, obviously, this is a George Harrison song. So again, very influential from the East and stuff, and India and all that kind of thing. And again, it's his opportunity to put what he found influential to put into songs there. Again, it's never really a song I've always enjoyed on the album, but I look at it differently and appreciate what they were at least trying to do. And I think this is why we like to talk about albums, because we always compliment people, who try and do different things. I'd rather have an album where they try and do things a little bit differently. And even if you have a couple of songs that you really don't like, if it means on the plus side you can have 2 songs that you really like, they've done something a bit different, then it seems worthwhile than just having the same old thing all the way through.
Yeah, again, I think this goes back to the point that I keep repeating, is that, as you said, this isn't really the album to listen to if you don't know anything about the Beatles. I think it's difficult to suddenly start liking these songs if you don't know any of their previous stuff or you're not a fan of them already.
Yeah, very much so. Especially over one listen as well.
Yeah, I only listened to once. Then we had Here, There and Everywhere. I just put not enjoyable. I just didn't like that one.
Okay. Again, maybe because I've been used to it. I really like this song. It's a popular song. Really, really enjoyable. I can't remember what I put here. Oh yeah, so just an interesting fact with this one, because I didn't know about it. So this song was influenced by the Beach Boys songs God Only Knows, which apparently God Only Knows was influenced by a different song from a different Beatles album. So almost like one big little circle, which I thought was quite interesting there. And obviously both bands are quite like a lot there. But yeah, for me, it's a really just nice, good song. Yeah, it's hard not to like or appreciate. But again, I get it from, if it's your first introduction to why you may think that being the case.
Okay. Then we had Yellow Submarine. As I said in the introduction here, I said I like this song, good song, but I didn't expect all the background noises. I didn't mind the background noises, like it was just a bit. I wasn't expecting that. There was all voices and stuff going on and things like that, sounds.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mind, but I like the song. I'm going to download it. I think it's only my 6th, if I'm not mistaken, the 6th song that I've taken from these albums. I think we're on album number 11 now. So. Yeah, I liked it. Maybe this song seemed a bit out of place compared to the other songs on the album. Maybe for me, I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, I saw it on Wikipedia. I'm sure they've got an album called Yellow Submarine. So what's all that about?
Yeah, so they had a movie out for Yellow Submarine. So there was a collection of songs from different albums, which would be on that sort of Yellow Submarine album. It's not. Depends what people want to class as official. And of course, it's official Beatles album, but not in the same sense. There's other songs there, but it's done purely for the movie. So it's kind of like a soundtrack, I guess, in some ways. Yeah.
And it contains the song Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, there's Yellow Submarine in that.
With the exact same song with those same voices.
Yeah, exact same song. And this is one thing about it also. Again, a lot of people who will call themselves out will probably say this is not a good reflection of the Beatles. This is, but like I said, I've got a niece who's 2 years old, and she knows and recognises this song and actually sings along with it. And that is what's really great about the Beatles, especially listening to some of their earlier stuff, which it is more sort of poppy, catchy, enjoyable songs. And that's how you should probably get introduced into the Beatles, is songs like Yellow Submarine, Octopus's Garden, those children ones, and then there's sort of more early 60s pop songs, and then come on to the more sort of the different side of the Beatles as well. So I'm at least glad you got something from the album, at least there.
Yeah, I think some of those early 60s like big pop hits might probably be more my thing. I don't know how much I'd like them, but probably more than this album. And then I think the last song on the first side was She Said, She Said. It was very different to Yellow Submarine, very big contrast. I just put again not enjoyable.
For me, it's just an average good song on the album, really. But yeah, very different to Yellow Submarine, and I can see why you probably think that song is particularly out of place.
Okay, moving on to the second side, and the first track on there was Good Day Sunshine. I put down second best song. I didn't mind this one. This one was a bit more normal. If you know what I mean. It was just had a chorus. It was something more of a kind of just pop kind of song. Probably didn't do enough for me to want to download it. I may actually listen to it again just to check. But yeah, this one wasn't bad.
Yeah, this is, I think, again, good example where, they have a good sort of catchy, more poppy style song, really. And I remember when I first listened to this album many years ago, some of had it on a tape, on a old cassette, like in car, and never used to enjoy the first half as much, but then suddenly when I came into the second half, that start of it was always a lot better and had a lot more effect. And when I say I really enjoyed that bit, it's purely probably from these next sort of few songs that happen from here, really. But yeah, again, you can't listen to that song and not actually smile a little bit or feel a little bit more upbeat after listening to it.
Okay, then we had And Your Bird Can Sing. Yeah, my notes aren't very comprehensive, I'm afraid, for this album. I just put just very average. I didn't mind it. I didn't like it. It was all right.
No, I really like this song. It's one of my favourites on there. Again, I just find it's just a good, enjoyable song after having Good Day Sunshine. And to this, just feels like it's just a good song. But again, like you haven't really got comprehensive notes on those side of things, really. I did write a little note which was of interest, but like I said, just a song I really, really like. So apparently there was a rumor that there's a line in there that goes, everything you want, everything you want, don't do it for me. Apparently was meant to be a dig back of Frank Sinatra, because apparently he said something, I don't think anything bad about John and all the Beatles. And apparently it was meant to be dig back, but apparently that's not true at all. So I probably wasted just a minute of just
the rumor. Okay,
explaining that. But it was quite interesting.
Okay, then we had For No One. Again, I just put not great. Again, it was just pretty average. Didn't really do anything for me, but I didn't hugely dislike it either.
Yeah. So not only is this probably my favourite song on the album, this could be up there as one of my favourite all-time Beatles songs. We'll be up there within like maybe a top 5 of some sorts. That's how much I really like.
So would you go as far as saying one of your all-time favourite songs, just ever?
We'll probably have to do a different sort of video about sort of stuff like that. It's hard to just, I think Beatles has to be almost in a separate sort of category from there. It'd be difficult to be like all-time favourite songs of all time, but definitely on the Beatles side of things, it's definitely up there.
Okay. Was there anything specific that you liked about it?
I can't really probably explain that. It's just seems again really well written. I just feel I relate to it. I don't know, and just again for me, it's hard why someone would find it difficult to not like the song. So I'm going to say it wasn't one of your favourites, but you also said didn't mind it. It's hard not to. It's not like a song that you could hate. It just feels like a really nice sort of emotional song. I think just probably got me a time when I was young and stuff, and liked it ever since, really.
Okay, Dr. Robert was next. Again, I put again quite average. Again, didn't dislike it, didn't mind it. I think what I was understanding at this point, for me anyway, I felt up to this point, it does change towards the end, that this second side of the album didn't seem quite as strange maybe as the first side. This is a little bit more kind of normal, sort of what it's almost kind of expect from the Beatles. As I say, it does change as we get towards the end.
Yeah. So again, for me, it's just an average, standard, good song on a Beatles album. And again, I don't know if it's a fab. Obviously, we talked about this is more trying to be more experimental, maybe because it's that transitional time where actually maybe they didn't want to go too far, do too much experimental, and still have some, you know, classic Beatles good songs on there. So it wasn't too much for people. Maybe I can't quote me on that. I don't know, but maybe that's generally the case, and probably why a lot of people regard this as such a good album, because it has that mixture of both. You do have a bit of everything you would want from the Beatles.
Okay. Then we had I Want to Tell You. Again, I don't have much to say. I just put down it was a letdown. It didn't deliver for me.
Again, I could probably see why. Again, for me, I put a lot of it. Again, just a good standard Beatles song to have on an album. Something to be there's one of the best songs on there. But again, as part of the album, it's a good song to have on there.
Okay, and the last two, I've got a little bit more to say. So, Got to Get Into My Life. What struck me about this one was the chorus. The chorus was weird. I don't know if you know what I mean. It kind of just was completely different to like the actual sound of the song. I don't know if that makes any sense. It was all right. I just found it a bit weird.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so Got to Get Into My Life. A song that I've always quite liked because there's an old Paul McCartney album that I listened to, like a live album, where he sings a song in it. And just as I've always just sort of really enjoyed it. But I can see where, and again, it's a little different. It is, meant to be a Motown influenced song. So there've been some big Motown acts who have done their own versions of this song. So it's a way where it is trying to be experimental, but it is meant to be very Motown influenced from that. And that's why we find it a little bit different. But I think it's generally, again, just a quite good song.
And the last song, Tomorrow Never Knows. To me, this one was very experimental. I've got here strange sounds going on in the background, which I couldn't really make out what exactly they were. Just very odd, sounds weird. And I put a question here: is this really the Beatles? Just to me, this is not what I would ever imagined the Beatles, would produce a song like that. Not that I knew much about them, apart from they're very famous, but yeah, it just seemed to really sort of threw me off completely. It's like nothing else. I didn't really like it. Didn't hugely dislike it. Just found it a bit weird and unusual.
Yeah. So pretty much everything that you said was there really. Very experimental. That's what it was all about in that particular song. There's a lot of things being played backwards, the Indian influence, music and orchestra sort of stuff there. Never used to like this song when I first used to start listening to it, especially when I enjoyed the start of it so much. But over time, I've really started to appreciate it, and again, probably got to remember also being back then in that time as well, how sort of probably amazing probably did sound back then as well in some ways, when you probably used to so many things. And I know that sort of style is not what you quite enjoy, Lee, and I think if it wasn't for stuff like that, you wouldn't get it now, which even though you may not enjoy, it is popular along with a lot of bands who have made big careers based on doing psychedelic experimental stuff, pushing boundaries out of songs as well. We'll just probably end on that note there, because I did find there's a quote from George Harrison when literally just after this album was released, and it was pretty based on this particular song. So he said in 1966, "This is easily the most amazing new thing we've ever come up with. Some people might say sounds like a terrible mess of sound." And as soon as I read that, I did think of you, Lee. I thought, I bet Lee would probably say something along those lines. But the song ought to be looked on as interesting. If people listen to it, be looked as interesting if people listen to it with open ears. It's like the Indian stuff. You mustn't listen to Eastern music with a Western ear. George Harrison, October 1966.
Yeah, I think the album
Yeah.
is one of those, isn't it? It's where you've really got to sort of delve quite deep into it to really appreciate it. Unlike someone like me who's just listening for the first time to the Beatles. Okay, what's this? It sounds a bit messy. No, I don't like it. I think that's probably what's happened here. Yeah, it's just
and we can't also, you know, put it under the carpet as well. It's during a time where, let's be honest, there was a lot of experimental with drugs as well, and there is drug references or drug influence with this album as well. And there's probably a point where you probably need to be on drugs to maybe enjoy it, or or people regard it such a good album because they were there at the time to listen to this album whilst being influenced by all these things. So there's a lot of table. So it'd be very unfair for anyone to sort of, and I'm glad you haven't done it where you've just gone and just disregarded the album completely. But if you had done that, I could see why in some ways, but I'm glad sort of at least you haven't. And there's a lot more that comes into this album. It's not just a simple, normal album, shall we say.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, what, you know, on the overall scheme of things, you know, how we're listening to all sorts of music. It could have been a lot worse. Like, there's obviously lots of genres of music that I really don't like, some of the hard rock stuff and that, and even some of this rappy stuff. So I think still on the whole sort of scale of things, what we could have listened to, it was still okay. And the most important thing for me is that I have taken a song from the album that I want to download and that I like. So I always, you know, have a soft spot for the albums where I managed to take a song from there. So far, we haven't had any albums where I've actually taken 2 songs from, so still the joint most, this Beatles album. So yeah, that's, I suppose you could say, the consolation that I've got from this album. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
There's nothing. I think there's nothing more I probably say. I think I've said enough probably all the way through there. But I said I'm just glad you at least got one song from there. And if you do ever get the chance, I would probably say it might be worthwhile to maybe listen to the Beatles, what's known as the One Album, which is just a list of all the, I can't remember how many it was now actually, all the number ones they had in America, and that gives you sort of a good timeline to get all the early Beatles stuff through the sort of Sunday and then the sort of end stuff, which I think is also really, really good, strong stuff all the way through. And then you could probably start to delve in particular albums, listen to the earlier stuff, get used to that, and then. But that's a bit of a project that could be in the background potentially.
Okay. Well, no, I will listen to some Beatles stuff because I want to download some more songs. So we're on the Beatles now, so I want to try and find out some of their big hits, basically. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some songs that I listen to with the Beatles. Sorry, one sec. Some of their bigger stuff, and I will recognise some of the songs. And I probably will download some of those as well. So I might listen to that one album that you mentioned.
I think it's a good introduction, good start for that, really.
Okay, then. So yeah, that's all from us regarding the Beatles. So yeah, join us then on Wednesday for the next random album pick, which I will be doing. So guys, see you on Wednesday. Goodbye.